Banking explained, money and credit. You work hard for your money, yet banks seem to keep it in a vault full of FEs and huge phrases. But what if I told you that you could figure out their code and take control of your own money? In this video, we will discuss how banks make money, why you pay those pesky FEs, and most importantly, how to turn the tables and make your money work for you. So watch the video till the end, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Money and credit are significant to the economy because they allow people to borrow and give money. At its core, it's about moving resources from one point in time to another, like a tango between what we use now and what we make in the future. Take the example of a farmer who needs money to buy fertilizer for his next crop. The banker steps in and offers help. The farmer says he will pay back after the harvest if the weather doesn't get in the way. In the same way, a loan borrower looks forward to getting paid at the end of the month but needs food immediately. These situations show what borrowing and loans are all about: moving the buying power of the future into the present. As time flows through money, income, wealth, spending, saving, and investing, it's like a never-ending river. These ideas are rich and meaningful because of the temporal component. Let's start with the linchpin: money. Money isn't just about tangible notes or digital deposits. It facilitates exchange. Its magic lies in the understanding that others will accept it, creating a web of trust. Governments and banks typically underpin this trust, but the Irish bank closure demonstrated that in the face of community trust, money can defy the absence of banks. Checks circulated like unclaimed promises, creating a chain of reliance reminiscent of a checkers game. Wealth steps onto the stage as the most considerable consumption potential without borrowing. It's the reservoir of resources that allows you to gulp down life without dipping into debt: the house, the car, the entirety of possessions. Income, the money tap that flows over time, spans wages, investments, and government transfers. It's a stream measured weekly or yearly, making it a flow variable. Conversely, wealth is a stock variable, a snapshot frozen in time, representing everything you own at a given moment. Now, let's go to the respected banks. These entities serve as financial intermediaries, facilitating the flow of funds from depositors to borrowers. Deposits, which are not simply stored, provide the foundation for fractional reserve banking. This complex mechanism enables banks to lend a portion of their deposit base, effectively generating money out of thin air. It's a delicate balance of trust and calculated risk, meticulously managed to maintain the system's stability. However, it also brings forth the captivating and risky industry of credit. Whether through attractive credit cards, appealing auto loans, or mortgages that offer the dream of homeownership, credit provides convenient access to the things we want with the expectation of paying it back in the future. It's a powerful tool capable of fueling ambitious endeavors or trapping in overwhelming debt. Mastering its usage necessitates caution and comprehension of interest rates, those seemingly harmless figures that dictate the expense of borrowing. Bank savings accounts are where most people and businesses pay their bills. It makes banks the most critical part of our payment system. Banks are the main places people get car, house, and school loans. They are also the main places where businesses, tiny ones, borrow money. People often say that banks are the engine of our economy. It is partly because of these tasks and because banks play a big part in the government's monetary policy. Now, let's simplify the idea of money before we go down the financial rabbit hole. A complete ecology exists within the crumpled banknotes and coins. The first kind of money is the base money, which consists of the currency in circulation and bank reserves. On the other hand, bank money is the money that banks produce when they want to spread credit joy like Santa Claus. We common citizens now have broad money, which consists of all the cash and deposits floating around. It becomes more complicated from here on out. The words of the powerful at the central bank don't define money. No, the key is to be open and trusting. Cash, coins, and bank accounts with the central bank are all forms of legal tender, which is the hip word for what everyone knows as real money. It feels like you're at the exclusive after-hours cash bash. Presenting Abacus Bank, not to be mistaken with the real-life institution that played a pivotal role in the 2008 financial crisis. Today on our stage, the base money, assets, and obligations are all assigned to Marco. When he enters the room with a crisp Benjamin and drops it into Abacus Bank, you deposit funds and the bank's balance sheet gracefully moves around. It's like a magical financial trick. Now Marco goes out of his way to spend $20 at Gino's grocery store. The balance sheets tango as he instructs Abacus Bank to transmit the money to Bonus Bank. While the financial waltz goes on, Abacus Bank's assets and liabilities fall by $20, Bonus Bank gets a cash injection, and liabilities to Gino grow. The true show begins, though, when Gino requests a loan. Suddenly, the money supply tap dances as Bonus Bank hands him $100. The balance sheets become a financial masterpiece when Gino's account receives an additional $100, yet he still owes Bonus Bank. Here, we're not merely discussing monopoly money. The term bank money describes the actual currency that banks print. The hitch is that the bank will have a liability, even though it's like getting money out of thin air. They're essentially trying to say, sure, you can have this money, but you'll owe us. However, interest is the secret ingredient. By tacking on interest on loans, banks generate income. So, Bonus Bank is throwing itself a small financial party if it lends Gino $100 at 10%. The net value of the bank increases when Gino repays $110. But wait, there's more. Banks juggle many responsibilities, including playing the role of money master and walking the risk high wire. Borrowing for the short term and lending for the long term, the art of maturity transformation. Sounds sophisticated, doesn't it? However, banks are put in danger of liquidity issues. Banks can't just give out all their deposits. They need something to back them up. Let's meet primary and secondary reserves, who are the hidden stars of the financial story. The team of reserves comprises cash, loans from other banks, and the reserves that the Federal Reserve requires banks to keep on hand. Next is the B team, which is made up of secondary reserves. Banks can sell these securities, usually government bonds, when they need cash quickly. Now, the Federal Reserve is like a referee. It tells banks how much of their savings they need to keep in reserve. After meeting this requirement, the bank's extra funds are what's left over. These are the money-making eggs. Let's say you put $500 into your bank. As a safety measure, your bank holds on to $100 but loans $400 to Miss Smith, who chooses to buy a brand new car from Savumore Car Dealership. Savumore puts that $400 into their bank, and the circle turns around. Their bank holds on to $80 as a reserve ninja but loans $320 from its extra reserves. That money moves from one institution to another like a hot potato in the world of money. There you have it. Your $500 is now split between 3 different institutions, up to $1,220. That's the multiplication effect, the trick that turns a single deposit into a chorus line for your money. Here, the Federal Reserve is in charge of all this game. They can make more or less money available by changing the reserve limits. It's like the director putting together the financial orchestra. Changing too many things could cause a credit crunch, which is when banks don't have enough money to give. Banks aren't just about money. They're also about the services they provide. The financial ballet comprises fees for checking accounts, financial coaching, etc. The interesting part is that banks only make 1% of their assets annually. It's like a run for money. This 1% is the metal. The government and banks have been working together for a very long time. We've seen it all, from Alexander Hamilton's idea of a central bank to Thomas Jefferson's idea of local rule. What's the deal? Many banks, big and small, spread out all over the land. Governments give banks licenses, act as referees, and push them to follow the economic tune. It's hard for banks to find the right balance between making money and helping people. Remember that the vast world of finance is not a fortress that can't be broken into. Suppose you want to understand its fundamental ideas, study, and be responsible with your money. In that case, you can go from being a confused bystander to being in charge of your financial future. What gems of info did you collect from today's video? Share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe. Have a great day!